I think what caught me most off guard was just realizing how much men do care and they are invested in the relationship. That role of like, I'm the problem solver, I'm the provider, I'm the protector. That's because they deeply care. Like, men don't do those things because they don't care. That's because they do love and care and cherish their partners very much. I haven't had a man in my office yet that wasn't deeply committed to their partner and their family. Even though some men may present like they're not emotional, not connecting in that way, they're still very invested in the relationship. They just show up in different ways.
Where do you think that comes from? This kind of perception that we give off of I'm hard, I'm good, I'm not emotional. Where do you think that shield comes from?
So I think there's two things at play here. I think that it is kind of what we see in the homes and how we're received as children. But I think once you set them out into that world right now, unfortunately, the societal expectations of what it means to be strong and masculine and a man are still very prevalent.
Welcome back, Wellness Ninjas, to another episode of the Wellness Dojo Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Craik, and super excited to have my friend Melanie Taylor here again.
Yay.
Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back, Kyle.
Yeah, I'm super excited. You know, you and me have had some really good conversations over the years, recorded and not recorded.
Yeah.
So excited to record another one of them together.
Me too.
Yeah,
I love doing this. This is great.
So how have you been? First of all, like what's going on in life?
Things have been really good. Yeah. My private practice connected therapy services is in Okotoks, and it's doing well. And I, as you know, am running a men's group in March, which you're going to be a special guest on. So thank you for that. We're going to cover all kinds of things in relation to men. So trauma, mental health, addiction, healthy relationships, understanding emotions, and then you're going to join us to talk about masculinity. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for that too. It's something that my passion has just been growing and growing over the years for. Yeah. I think naturally as you go through things in your own life as well, you start to, it's like you want to take your struggles or just even your experiences, good or bad, and try and help other people with those things.
I don't know if that's natural. I think that's special.
Is it?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I think that's a special quality of you, Kyle.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But it's something that definitely has always felt natural to me. Like something that I've always, even through martial arts and everything that I've done, I've always had that lens of like, okay, this happened to me. How can this help somebody else? Or how is this, going to help my kids or anything like that? So
that's a nice lens.
Well, I think you have it too, right?
Yeah.
Being in like a therapist, and
definitely.
It definitely comes with the territory of just wanting to help people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that old quote, like leave the world better than you found it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of how I try and live my life. So
yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And is that something that you notice yourself doing as well in your line of work? Where do you find yourself? I mean, obviously, with a therapeutic relationship, there's probably less sharing of like, oh yeah, I went through this and that type of thing. But do you find yourself relating things like that, and that helps you help other people?
Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, I'm very cautious around disclosure, obviously, in sessions. But I'll share if, I always ask permission. I'm like, can I share something about myself? And a lot of people are like, yes, please do. So sometimes I will relay that if it's appropriate, but it's certainly helped me understand things in a different way and then use that information to support people in a better way. Yeah. And it's helped me. Like I've learned a ton from the people I support. So yeah, it's reciprocal.
Yeah. I always say that. Yeah, it's so true. Like I was having a conversation recently with somebody about that also, where, I'm so blessed to have put myself in these different situations for work where it's not just me helping other people, but I'm continually learning from everybody around me, whether it's men's groups where you're hearing other men sharing and you're like, oh, wow, like I learned a lot from that, or that resonates really deeply with me. And now I don't feel as alone either.
Definitely.
Or even if it's youth, like you hear these kids that are, talking about a struggle that they have. And I'm like, I relate to that. Like I went through that too, or now I know more about that, so I can now help more people. Right.
Oh, definitely. And in relation to relationships, like one of my areas of interest is men's mental health, as you know. And I do that for a variety of reasons. But one of the unintended perks of that has been getting the male perspective on what it's like to be in a relationship with a woman. Mm-hmm. And how maybe I've shown up in my past relationships maybe it wasn't the most effective or supportive. So it's helped me in a lot of personal ways.
Yeah.
And it's definitely given me a different lens and perspective. So it's so fulfilling to support men because I think it is very overlooked, not talked about enough. But I also get, like I said, I get some benefit from it too. So
yeah. Well, and that's super interesting. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I'm curious from that perspective of like, what are you hearing a lot from men who are coming in? Because it might be slightly different from things that I'm hearing as a male being spoken to by a male kind of thing. I'm curious, what are some of the things that you're hearing?
I would say there's definitely some themes that tend to come up. I would say probably one of the most prevalent ones is definitely that men often feel like their major role and what value they bring to relationships is the provider role, the provider and the protector. So very focused on career, bringing in enough money to support the family, and that usually takes priority over a lot of other things like emotional connection, intimacy, those types of things, because they're so focused on being able to provide and take care of their family. A lot of men that I work with get lost in that identity. So that becomes all they do is their family. Work, family, work, family. And they become quite isolated. They don't connect with their friends as much, or they lose their friend groups. They don't engage in the rec activities that they used to engage in because they feel guilty if they're not doing that role. And the other thing I would say that I notice a lot of is a real difficulty in connecting emotionally. Oftentimes because one, that was never role modeled or they were never taught. But I do hear a lot of examples around women not understanding when they're trying to emotionally connect and how they do that. And some women even being like really caught off guard by it and becoming defensive or shutting down themselves. So that makes the men that I support feel like they can't talk about how they're feeling, or they can't talk about what they're thinking because it just doesn't feel like it's received in the ways that they had hoped. Yeah,
it's an interesting kind of paradox that we're in right now, where there's a high expectation, it feels like, to be somebody who's emotionally aware, emotionally regulated. The number one thing, I'm in the dating pool now. The number one thing is like, thank you. Oh, thank you for understanding.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my next question. What do women actually want? No. But there's this like, the number one thing you see is like, I want somebody who knows how to communicate and is like emotionally regulated and stuff. But then it's almost like when you are those things and when you have practiced those things and you do those things, you're right. Like they don't know how to take it, or it's too much now, or it's a very interesting paradox where I think there's a lot of guys who are like, okay, I'm trying to like make this shift to be a better man.
Totally.
But yeah, it's not being received.
No. And that's a lot of the work that I do. Like almost every man that I see is because of this role around being the provider, but also mainly around relationship dynamics, struggling in their relationships because they are getting the feedback of exactly that. Like, we're not emotionally connected. You're not sharing enough with me. You're working too much, those types of things. And what we work on in session is how to like effectively communicate what they're thinking and feeling in a way that maybe doesn't come across as confrontational, and that it's respectful, and that it's using I statements and those types of things. But unfortunately, oftentimes, because the dynamic has already existed in that relationship, the women that they're with often are like, whoa, no. This isn't how we do things. This isn't what I'm used to. This isn't, and they get very defensive, and that creates some conflict. So I tell a lot of the men that I start with that it's going to get uncomfortable before it gets better, because you are changing that dynamic so significantly.
So how does a relationship navigate that? Like when you are, let's just use the example. Let's say a guy knows that he's got some skeletons in his closet, so to speak. He's got some work to do. He's trying to work through it. Or maybe he's just trying to bring up the courage to finally like speak up and say like this isn't something that is working for me, or this isn't something that feels good for me. And then that's met with resistance. How does a couple navigate that?
It really depends on where the partner is at as well, right? Like I find that if the partner is also not engaged in therapy or hasn't done any, like work on themselves around what they want in the relationship, it can be even harder because that level of insight, awareness, and wanting to grow just isn't the same. So it's not matched. So what I'll often say is, first I want to know, like, is your partner in therapy, or do they have a support circle? Like, are they engaged in growth? Like, what does that look like for them? So I have an understanding of what we're really up against here. Oftentimes it will end up with me being like, I think it would be helpful to have your partner in the room while these conversations are being had. So either I will offer to let them bring their partner to a session, or I'll make recommendations for couples therapists. Because oftentimes having that third person can be really helpful to shift these dynamics to the degree that really needs to take place for the relationship to grow.
And how does that usually go? Like, is the first session like super awkward?
when the partner
Yeah,
joins?
when the partner joins.
Not really. No, because then I find the partner is wanting things to change. The ones that come, right? There's a lot that are like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
right?
That makes sense.
But the ones that want to come are like, yeah, like I want to figure this out. I know we've got some things to work on, and they're really receptive. Yeah. People behave differently when there's a third person in the room.
That's true, right? It's like almost having the mediator in the room. Yeah. And it's also so true because, and I think it's the struggle with trying to create change, is the people who are already in a mindset that are willing to show up for it. Yeah. They're usually pretty receptive. Those are what I would call like the easy ones.
Definitely. I agree.
Right? But it's like, how do you help somebody create that change when there isn't that two-sided willingness, I guess?
Yeah, and that I say would probably be the biggest barrier for the work that I do with men is their partners aren't willing. So how do you do that? And those are the tough conversations I have with my clients is you're only so much of this equation. There's only so far that we can take this. At some point, we're going to have to reflect on, have conversation around what is this going to look like for both of you. Because he can't do all of the work and expect it to get better. It's got to be from both people. And what I often hear men relaying to me is their partners will be like, well, that's your problem. Like, that's a you issue. You need to go get help with that. I'm fine. So then there's that barrier again of like the partner not being willing or having insight or really kind of a blaming stance of like, well, we have problems because you have problems. Yeah. Which is so detrimental to the mental and emotional state of the individual, whether it's like whichever way it's coming from. Yes. Right. Yeah. That's tough. It is. It
can be. Yeah. It is. I'm curious, like, what else men are saying in those situations. Like, what other struggles are coming up? So obviously there's this emotional resistance of, I want to change. No, it's your problem. Or, well, go work through it then, kind of thing. What else are they saying in sessions? I'm curious.
I think one of the things that really surprised me, I'd say the most actually, when I first started supporting men, is as a woman leading up to that point, I would say I always kind of had a perspective that men were more like laid back, more carefree, weren't invested as much in, the growth and development of a relationship, those types of things. I would say there were stereotypes for sure in my mind, even as a woman. I think what caught me most off guard was just realizing how much men do care and they are invested in the relationship. So, like I said, that role of like, I'm the problem solver, I'm the provider, I'm the protector, that's because they deeply care. Like, men don't do those things because they don't care. That's because they do love and care and cherish their partners very much. I haven't had a man in my office yet that wasn't deeply committed to their partner and their family. So I think I was most struck by that of like, okay, so even though some men may present like they're not emotional, not connecting in that way, they're still very invested in the relationship. They just show up in different ways. And I think for me, that was the most surprising thing to learn. Yeah.
Where do you think that comes from? Of like having this kind of perception that we give off of, no, I'm I'm hard, I'm good, I'm not emotional, to being like when the space, because I've noticed it too, where when you set the space right, when the intention is set properly, men are very willing to open up and be vulnerable and want to do that work. Mm-hmm. Where do you think that shield comes from?
Largely, I think it's from childhood upbringing, what they were role modeled in the family. So even their moms, how were they treated? Even their dads, how were they treated? How was emotion received growing up? How was emotion discussed in the home? What were the responses of childcare, of care providers when they did get emotional? Those types of things, I think, lays the foundation. In my experience as a therapist and as a mother who also has a son, I would say that there's a large component of society. I tried my best with my son to be emotionally available, make sure that he was aware emotions were okay. But as soon as he got sent off to school, he very much was impacted by don't be a wuss. Boys don't cry. Like, suck it up, move on. So I think there's two things at play here. I think that it is kind of what we see in the homes and how we're received as children. But I think once you set them out into that world right now, unfortunately, the societal expectations of what it means to be strong and masculine and a man are still very prevalent.
I think that it's something that I've recognized as well in sports growing up, like in martial arts and stuff. Like, I've recognized now as a man who has done some real self-reflection, gone through some real shit. I've really recognized where some of that has come from for me as well, in terms of like, no, just push through the pain, just brush it off. I think there's a place for it, but I think we need to know where the line is with it as 1,000%. Well, right? Where like there's something to being resilient and having the grit to push through when things are tough and stuff, but it's not like you push past it and it's gone. No. It's like, do we have to learn how do we come back to it, and how do we find those spaces, I think, where it is safe for us to be vulnerable and to open up.
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah, I definitely think, like you said, like grit, resiliency, there's a place for it, 1,000%. I think where it goes too far is when there's no acknowledgement of the feelings of the experience at any point.
Yeah.
It's just, okay, I gotta push through. Yeah, but how did it feel to experience that? What was that like for you? What did that bring up for you? What did you notice in yourself? Like, those types of questions are really important versus just, it's fine, I'm just going to push past.
Yeah. What's the importance there of tapping back into that? Instead, like, I say that is, you might know, like, oh yeah, like my dad never cried, or you might know, yeah, I was told to just brush things off. What's the significance of actually going back and being like, okay, what did that actually feel like? And like almost re-experiencing those things.
Mm-hmm. You mean look back on like your childhood as a whole, or what do
you? Yeah, or
mean?
even just those,
or just like the experience in the moment.
Yeah, like even let's say you got hurt and you started to cry, and your coach was like, "Hey, we don't cry. Like, let's push past." Like, what would be the significance to going back to like that specific moment and trying to almost relive it?
I think we learn from those experiences, right? So, you may learn, okay, well, when my coach said just push past it, suck it up, that made me feel like I didn't matter. It made me feel like I was a kid again with my dad or my mom. It made me feel like this. And having that awareness about why those emotions are triggered in you based on certain experiences can be really useful information moving forward to build that resiliency, where you're like, so the next time your coach says something like that, maybe it's like, doesn't hit as deep, because you're like, oh, okay, I know that's younger me being triggered because that's what my dad used to say when I used to fall off my bike, right? Like just having that awareness of why you're feeling the way that you're feeling, where it's coming from, can be really healing moving forward.
Yeah, I think like that level of understanding, right? It's like when you understand something more, it really takes some of the emotion away from it. I think sometimes. There's something that I heard recently. It was like, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was around the power of understanding, right? And just how like when you do understand something, it completely shifts it. It's not about having to get rid of something, right? Like if you have like a trauma or something like that, or a memory like that, it's like you don't need to get rid of the memory. You just need to learn to understand it, because it's going to be a part of you no matter what.
1,000%. I completely agree with that.
Yeah. So let's get back to this dynamic, this like relationship dynamic a little bit, because it's one thing, we all know that men are struggling. We all know that, and women are struggling too. Like times are tough. Everybody's got problems. Everybody's got traumas and stuff that they've gone through in their life. When it comes to making a relationship work though, you know, coming from the lens of somebody who was in a long-term relationship, was married, got divorced, now kind of like back out there trying to figure out this new world of dating and stuff like that. It is like, I was joking with you before about like, yeah, what do women actually want? But I think there really is a disconnect right now in terms of what people want / need and expectations. So I'm just curious, that's a very general question, but I'm curious your thoughts on the current state of the world in with men and women in particular.
So what is the question though? Like, what do I think women actually want? Or
sure,
what
let's
goes
start
into a
there.
healthy
Let's start
relationship?
there.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a selfish question. What do women want, Melanie?
I mean, it varies woman to woman, but I think what I often hear, because I support many women as well, right? I don't just see men.
Yeah.
I have probably more female clients than I do men at this point. Emotional connectivity, to feel emotionally connected to their partners. So what they're saying to me and what's missing for them is they don't feel like there's that emotional deepness. It's very surface level. It's very, did you pick up the kids? Did you get the groceries? Did you pay the bills? Those types of things, like the daily living stuff is always taken care of. But there's no like time to just, hey, how was your day? How are you feeling today? You know, did anything come up for you today? Oh, I had a really hard day because this happened. Like there's just, that's not happening enough. And then they feel disconnected. And oftentimes, not to stereotype, you know, maybe we can touch on love languages, but a lot of men's love language is physical touch. A lot of women's is like quality time, acts of service, words of affirmation. So if that isn't happening on an emotional level from the woman's perspective, they're less inclined to want to give physical touch. But then men want physical touch and that's not happening. So then there's this breakdown because there's not that connection. So I would say that is the biggest thing I'm hearing from women is my partner and I just don't connect emotionally.
It's interesting because I have heard that in terms of like even intimacy in a relationship. It's like men seek emotional connection through intimacy, whereas women seek intimacy through emotional connection. Like the emotional connection has to be there first for a woman. Typically, like not to overgeneralize, but and then for the man it's the opposite. They're seeking that intimate connection so that they can feel emotionally connected. So then it's like when one's not, let's say the woman is not getting the emotional connection, she's not going to be as willing to be intimate. And then when the man is shut down intimately, he's like, now he feels emotionally rejected. So yeah, it creates this really weird cycle.
And I would say that exists in almost every woman and man that I support is that breakdown of connectivity.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that emotional connection then. Like, how do we deepen that emotional connection? You mentioned things like just checking in, like, how's your day going, that type of stuff. Like, what else? Like, let's paint the picture of what emotional connection could look like.
I mean, what I tell a lot of the clients that I support is like, I think one of the first things, the easiest things you can do is make a mental note or set a reminder on your phone to regularly check in with your partner. And that doesn't have to be daily. It can be once a week, Sunday nights.
It's just like asking, like, how's your day? How was your day?
Week? What was the best part? What was, maybe the most challenging part? What do you need from me this week? Just asking what they need and sharing some of your own experiences of what the past week has been like. Just creating opportunities for that to happen. It doesn't need to be like a 3-hour conversation about the trauma you experienced growing up with your dad or your mom. It can just be, how was your week? Genuinely. Like, what was good about it? What was bad about it? What could I have done to have been more supportive? What, these are some things you could have done to be more supportive. And just opening the conversation on a more consistent, regular basis. That would be the first thing I would suggest.
Interesting. Do you have men that are trying those things and feeling resistance, like we talked about earlier with kind of trying to have some of those conversations? I'm curious because I've experienced this before where I'm trying to create that emotional connection, but it's met with resistance or it's met with like, we don't have time for this right now, or like, why are you like, why are you doing this right now? Or I don't know.
Well, there is that like
not
understanding. They're like, what's going on right now? Like, we've never done this. We've been together for 16 years.
Yeah.
There's definitely that. I would say starting with check-ins is is met with the least resistance in my experience. Because it isn't being like, we don't connect, you don't connect with me, you're not being physical with me. It's just hey, genuinely curious, how are things going from your perspective? What do you need? Here's what I need. So I haven't heard a lot of resistance from partners if it's coming from that place.
Yeah.
If it's more of a like, we need to sit down and talk because there's some issues, that's usually met with resistance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you think people often think it needs to be bigger than it is in terms of building emotional connection?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, they think that's that like, well, I don't want to like sit down and talk about, I don't want to have a 3-hour conversation about why it hurts my feelings because it reminds me of my dad or my mom, right? Like, it doesn't have to be that. It can literally just be genuinely curious how life is like for you right now. What was it like at work for the past week? Or if you're doing monthly check-ins, I don't care. Just do regular check-ins where you're setting time aside to genuinely connect and ask what their experience has been, but also share what your experience has been.
Yeah. I think even the small things can very quickly or easily rather become like, you can feel defensive with them. This is something I remember having a conversation with somebody once about it, where they were bringing things to my attention, which were super valid. But the way that the conversation was happening, like, it immediately put me on the defense because it made me feel like I wasn't doing enough constantly.
Yeah.
And I remember having the conversation, and it was like, this is how this conversation makes me feel right now. It's what you're saying is valid, and I appreciate you bringing it to my attention, but I'm just telling you it's making me feel defensive because of the way that it's being said. And like, my solution to that was, if we could have these conversations where instead of it being like, I don't know, maybe it's like, how come you don't hold my hand as much anymore, or something like that, right? It's like, for me as a man, where, I maybe had a history of being told like, you don't do enough of this, you don't do enough of this. It's triggering, or it can be triggering for somebody where they're like, oh, it's just nothing I ever do is enough, kind of thing, right? Where you could shift that conversation to rather be, how come, like, have you noticed that we don't hold hands as much?
Yeah.
Where it becomes like this we thing.
Yes.
It's like, this is something that we're experiencing, not something that you're either doing wrong or you're not giving to me. Is there power in that? Like, in terms of shifting that from like, this isn't a you problem, this is a we problem. How do we solve it together?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we always want to avoid you statements, right? That's probably the number one golden rule. We don't want to use you statements. Stick to I statements is the basic general rule. But yeah, I think shifting it from, this is a problem for both of us, how are we going to fix this, is definitely beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about like masculine and feminine. I'm curious, like, as somebody who works with men and women quite frequently, I'm curious, like, what's your definition of like feminine and masculine energy?
Oh, that's a tough question, Kyle.
Yeah, it's a big one.
That's a big question.
I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to it either.
No, not at all. I'm just trying to think of like, how do I experience it, or how do I understand it?
How do you understand it? Like, let's go feminine energy first. Like, how do you understand feminine energy, and like, or how the feminine energy shows up, let's say, in a relationship?
The feminine energy. I don't know if I know what that means.
So for me, I think of like the first word that comes to my mind when I think of feminine is like nurture. Right? Like it's like, or at least like the expectation that society has is,
Gotcha.
Like the feminine energy is the nurturing energy, let's talk about our emotions, let's open up, let's go internal, like that kind of energy. Whereas for me, the masculine energy, the perception is like, let's get it done. Let's problem solve.
Yeah.
Let's grind. Let's push through it, kind of thing. Yeah.
So what do I think? What I'm hearing is like more like, what are the expectations or kind of stereotypes of what it means to be feminine?
Sure. Let's start. Yeah.
To be masculine. Okay. Yeah, definitely. I would say the role of caretaker, nurturer, is definitely laid upon the woman's feet to take care of that sort of stuff. The expectation is that they will tend to those needs, tend to the needs of everybody before their own. Because that's what women do. We are caretakers, right? And then definitely for men, I would say it is, you need to provide. You're a provider. You're the protector. You're the one that takes care of the family from that perspective. And then you don't complain. You do it without complaint. You do it because it's your job. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Yeah, and the reason I asked that is because I wanted to kind of discuss roles a little bit, because I think we're in a society right now where roles are kind of confusing in society right now.
Yeah.
Like, for a lot of good reasons, right? Like when we were talking recently, we kind of talked a little bit about this, where women are doing amazing in society right now. Come a long way from what it used to be, yes. Right? There's a lot of women who are climbing the corporate ladder, and rightfully so, and finding a lot of success, and there's a lot of empowerment with women, and it's all amazing. But again, when you look at men now from that perspective, there's a lot of women now who are like, I don't need a man to provide for me. Like, I got this. I can do this on my own, right? Like, I'm a strong, independent woman. I can do this on my own, which in one sense is really amazing, right?
Yeah.
But in another sense, I think it does leave some men to be like, okay, then
where do I fit?
Like, what do you actually need me for?
Yeah.
Right? Because women are already so good at, like, they have their friends. They go and they talk through their stuff. They work through their emotions. They're good at that, nurturing themselves and stuff like that. Even though, put everybody first. I think that is a quality. But there's no doubt they're better at, like, opening up in general. Like, with friends and stuff. Like, just when you look at statistics on, like, men with friendships and women with friendships, like that kind of thing, community-wise.
Definitely.
They've got that. So, like, emotionally, they're kind of more, they're more, like, genetically almost even, like, predisposed to being able to do that. So men are coming in and they're like, okay, well, I'll provide for you then. Like, I'll keep you safe. They're like, we don't need that. I don't need a man for that. It's like, okay, well, what do you need a man for? And I think there's a lot of men that maybe do feel lost with that, where they're like, where do I actually fit into this equation now? Like, what is masculinity now?
Totally. Yeah. And I would just say, in my experience with women and being a woman, a lot of that talk around, I don't need anyone, I can take care of myself, actually isn't true. It's a lot of posturing. I can't tell you how many women in my office are like, I just want to be taken care of, right? Even the most rah, I'm climbing the corporate ladder, I'm doing these things for myself, blah, blah, blah. They still would just really love to be cared for and loved in a way that makes sense to them. So I think that there is a shift in kind of the messages around women. But in my experience, they still just want to be loved and cared for.
Yeah.
I can see what you're saying, though, in terms of, like, the messaging that is more prominent around women right now is around, like, not needing a partner, not needing a man, being independent, all those types of things. There's definitely that, like, persona. And it is hard for men because, like you said, they're like, well, then if you don't need me, where do I fit? And men feel like they need to be needed in that way to feel validated, right?
Yeah. And like, a lot of purpose comes from that.
Yep, definitely. Yeah. I think what I tell a lot of my male clients is, like, you are more than just a paycheck. And creating value in themselves and seeing themselves as more than just a paycheck. Like, what are the other things you bring to the table? And that is really hard for a lot of the men that I support to do because they don't know. They're like, I don't know, I'm consistent. I make sure that there's food in the fridge. I make sure that, my partner can get her nails done. I make sure that my kids are well clothed. Like, that is where a lot of their value comes from. So if that's taken away or they feel like that's being taken away, I haven't had that experience yet where I've had men say, like, I don't know where I fit in. But it would be interesting to have those conversations with some men for sure. Yeah.
Where do you think that comes from in terms of women who they want to be loved, they want to be taken care of, but there's obviously this mask that's being put up in society. Where do you think that comes from, or what have you heard?
I think a lot of it comes from just the women kind of empowerment messages, right? Like there's just so many messages that were brought on, like especially women in my age group. If you look back at, like, for instance, media representations of women, it's almost always the man is rescuing the woman in a show, a movie, anything. That's just the dynamic. And I think that there was this real shift of like, well, actually, I don't need that to happen. I can take care of myself, because women are more than competent and more than capable of doing those things. Most of them have been doing it since they were very little. They were parentified to be the mother role, right? So I think we just got tired of being perceived that way, being represented that way, and it's not representative of our strength. So I think that there's been some pushback against that messaging of like, we're not these damsels in distress that need you to save us. We're more than capable. Thank you very much. And maybe it's gone a little too far in some regards. But I don't think that it is a threat to masculinity. Yeah.
No, I don't either. I appreciate that. That's a really good explanation. I think it's like most things, we tend to swing a little too far one way, and then we have to try and like find that middle ground. And I think it's almost where we're at with society right now, is we're trying to find that middle ground of how do we navigate this new almost like change of roles.
Totally.
Because like we see something we would like very rarely see 10, 20 years ago is there's stay-at-home dads now who stay home, and the woman goes and makes the money and stuff, and the dad stays home and that role works for them. And at least in my opinion, I think it comes from understanding. And you mentioned the word curiosity earlier. I think curiosity is just, I think it's so huge in terms of like really anything in life, but especially in relationships. If you can just approach things with a level of curiosity and be like, okay, I've got this person who's like very independent. Where does that come from? Like, how can we like make this work? How do I nourish that, but also like find my own role in this situation? I think if both people can get really curious from a non-judgmental or defensive standpoint.
Definitely. Which,
I mean, I don't know if I'm describing a pipe dream right now, but.
No, I think you're 100% right. And I say it a lot in session, like, let's just approach this from a genuine curiosity of what's going on for the other person or why they think or feel that way. Right? Like, you're never going to go wrong being like, can you help me understand why you're reacting this way, or why you're feeling this way right now? Like, I really genuinely want to understand. Right? Like, that's pretty hard to get defensive with. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you would think, right?
You would think.
I mean, like, it's funny because these conversations, they all seem simple. Like when you and me are sitting here talking about it.
Oh, they're hard.
But then when you get into it in practice, there's so many other factors that come in. What kind of day did they have that day when you tried to have that conversation? Or, you know, maybe it's somebody who's like, maybe it's a new relationship that you're trying to build that trust and connection, but they also have a history of that's got their guard up for different things, and it's tricky.
Well, and I think vulnerability is what's also really important to kind of keep in mind, and just be mindful of it. But everyone has a different experience with vulnerability, right? So how was that woman or that partner, how are they vulnerable? What was their experiences with vulnerability? What is their current experience with vulnerability? And if you have your partner, whether you've been together 16 years or you're just starting out, and they're showing you this display of vulnerability that you're not used to seeing or experiencing or have had bad experiences with, you're probably going to have a reaction. So, there's so much we could say about vulnerability and how important it is. It's very hard for men, and I totally want to acknowledge that. Vulnerability is very scary to a lot of the men that I support. They don't even really understand what it is, how to do it, because it's not part of that masculine energy that we were talking about, right?
I have theories on that too. I'm curious, like, where you think that comes from with men in particular, like why their guard is so up to vulnerability.
I think because, and I talk a lot with a lot of the men that I work with around emotional safety. Emotional safety is, exactly that, feeling completely safe to be able to share, express, feel, emote your feelings without judgment, criticism, or being shut down. Sounds easy to do, but it isn't. And unfortunately, back to that, like experience in childhood, experience growing up, experience in society growing up, a lot of men didn't get that because it's not allowed or expected or supported. So if you have someone that is like shut down because they've never had that safety, how do you break that down in the matter of like a relationship, right? Like a significant relationship. How do you break that down? That takes a lot of work from the man and the woman to understand what is emotional safety. How do I create emotional safety with my partner? And how do I challenge the vulnerability piece in relation to emotional safety? Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think vulnerability has always been there for men, but I think we've lost a lot of it because we've lost so much community. Like I alluded to earlier, like statistics around men with friendships and stuff, like the statistics are super sad when you hear like when they've asked a man like if they even have like a good friend in their life or a best friend. It's like 1 in 4 men or something like that say they don't actually have like somebody they would call their best friend in life.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty alarming.
It's very alarming, and almost every man I see says that to me.
Yeah.
They don't have anyone that they talk to.
And
they
like,
have friends, but they don't have anyone to talk to.
Like they don't have that tribe kind of. And that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier when you think about like, again, I don't want to overgeneralize, but like most women have a friends group where they go for drinks and they can like bitch about their husbands and that's all mostly super healthy, right? A lot of guys don't have that, where it's like maybe they're sitting texting with a buddy, but it's usually pretty surface level or joking around. It's pretty rare that you have somebody where you're like, hey, like I'm struggling in my marriage right now, or I'm struggling in my relationship, and like I just need somebody to hear me out or something. Like that's a very rare thing. But I think we used to have that. Even when you go back to the idea of like hunters and gatherers, right? It's like men would be out hunting for a day or more. Like you don't think that they were maybe like talking about like what was happening in the cave and stuff, like to kill that time? Like there were probably conversations that they were having that, or even just that time to go and like just walk and think through things. Whereas I think we live in such a busy society that now it's like you go to work, you're not thinking about those things, and then you get home, you've got these responsibilities and stuff. Like maybe it's like got to help with dinner, we got to get the kids out to their sports, we got to do this and this and this. And then it's like at the end of the day, the person that you've chosen to spend it with now becomes like almost everything. Like they now have to fill all those roles.
Yes.
Because you don't have your guys that you're going out with and like talking to and stuff like that. And so now it becomes on them. Yes. Right. And I think that can be tough.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Kyle, like every man I see, like I said, doesn't have like a friend that they talk to.
Yeah.
Every man, like I'm just running through the list in my head and I'm like, yeah, no. And it's one of the very first questions I asked is, who's your support network? And most times it's like, well, my wife. Might hear mom sometimes. More often than not, I hear no one. I don't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And that's why they're talking to me, is they don't have anybody to talk to. And yeah, I think there has been a real loss, and the trajectory of how relationships are built for women after, if they decide to have kids and get married is very different than the trajectory for men when they decide to do those things, right? Like women tend to come together, support one another. There's a lot of moms groups. There's a lot of like birthing groups that you go through while you're pregnant. There's a lot of opportunities offered to women to build that support and community, which I'm grateful for as a woman. We are not set up that way for men.
Yeah.
We're just not. They don't offer dads groups for men. You might see some on like a random Facebook page of a couple guys getting together. But you don't see a lot of men signing up for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to jump in and say that, like, I think that those things exist, or they're trying to exist for men.
They're trying.
But like, this and I know this from like you're running men's groups. I'm also trying to run some men's groups. it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to get men to sign up for stuff like this.
So hard.
So it's like, it's frustrating as well, because you hear these things, you know that men are struggling, and you know that men want it.
Yeah.
Like when I first started doing men's groups, number one thing I heard from people when I reached out to them to see if they were interested in joining is like, we need more of this stuff. I'm like, yes, we do. We also need more men like you to join stuff like this, to show other men that it's okay.
Yeah, and to get like funding, backers, supports
Yeah.
to be able to run these things.
Yeah,
Right? Like,
100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is this really interesting dynamic of, we want it, but I don't know, we're not ready, or we're not willing. I don't know where it's coming from, but it's tricky.
It is very tricky because men are looking for safe spaces, but they don't know how to find them because they've never had a lot of them haven't had that, right? The safe space. But I hear almost every man that I support, they want the safe space, but it's so foreign to them.
Yeah.
That they don't even know one when it's being offered.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go to a group with a bunch of guys and talk about my feelings. Are you insane?
Yeah.
Like, it's so foreign.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this recently because like I run the Brotherhood Project and constantly trying to think of like, how can I do this better? How can we make this easier? And I think there's something to like a lower level of entry almost for like lower the bar in terms of like what we expect. You don't have, maybe it's not about at first just showing up or like maybe it's not first about showing up and sharing all your feelings.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just about showing up and just connecting and just, maybe it's having fun at first and doing things like that. And because I think that trust is the big thing. I talk about this a lot, where it's like vulnerability requires trust, but in order to build trust, you need to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do we start that cycle?
Yeah.
And then if trust has been broken, let's say maybe you went to your partner and you were vulnerable for the first time in a long time about something, and then you find out that they told their girlfriend or something, and you're like I'm never, or maybe then they bring it up in an argument later and they use it against you or something like that, which happens probably non-maliciously, it just comes up, but then you're like, man, like you don't know how hard that was for me to share that with you.
Yeah.
And now I never want to do it again with anybody because the person I trusted the most in the world dropped the ball on it.
Yeah.
How am I going to trust a stranger with it?
Oh, 1,000%. And that's that safe space thing, right? Like they're looking for safe spaces, and depending on how that's received or offered is going to really shape how they do it moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, I would agree with what you're saying there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It is hard. But I think that there's hope.
Yes, definitely.
Because like, as you're seeing in your practice, like men are coming in, they do want to figure things out. They do want to kind of repair these patterns that clearly just aren't working in the society that we have right now anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm always blown away by the men that come to me and they're like, this isn't working for me anymore. I need to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't even know what this is, but they know something needs to change.
Yeah.
And that willingness to come to a complete stranger, a woman, and really, I'm always blown away by the level of vulnerability that most of the men I see have right off the bat. I think it's because with therapy, there is that perceived trust, that perceived safe space, right? Where a lot of the men that I see the first session, like I know their whole life story, like from start to finish. Mm-hmm. And there's been tears and there's been anger and there's been all those things. And I'm always just so struck by that. Because when they do have the safe space, when they do have that perception of trust, or they do feel like they can trust you, they're so willing and they want it. Mm-hmm. And that's why I do what I do. Yeah,
I love that. I think I've heard this from men too, that sometimes it's easier to open up to a stranger because you feel like there's less. I think it's because that trust piece, because I think men and women too, but men have been, they've had that trust kind of abandoned before. They've had that trust broken with vulnerability.
Oh, yes.
And so sometimes it's easier to go into somebody like yourself who they're like, okay, I know there's a confidentiality thing here, so they literally can't share what I'm about to say, but also they have no skin in the game in a way.
That's so funny. I hear that almost every time. It's nice to come to someone who has no skin in the game.
Yeah.
Almost every male client says that at some point.
Interesting,
so
hey? Yeah. But it's so true. Like I've experienced that even as well, like going to therapy and stuff. I'm like, I feel so comfortable I can sit here and share because it feels like there's no risk involved. Yeah. Right. Whereas sharing with somebody in your life, it feels like so much risk. It's so scary. Yeah, 1000%. And I'm so glad that therapy exists and that it's becoming more accepted and that men are starting to seek it out. And I'm so happy. I'm so happy to be proud. I'm proud to be part of the community that is offering that and recognizing that men are struggling. Like the suicide rate in Canada is ridiculous. It's almost all men. 75% of suicides in Canada are men. It's wild. Like something is going on here. And I mean, this is a crisis at this point. Like why are men feeling this way? Why are they taking their own lives? What is missing here? Yeah. Well, conversations like this hopefully help kind of bring it to light, and the work that you're doing. Like I'm so blessed to know you and to be able to have connected and to be able to collaborate on different things. Like, do you want to talk about your men's group coming up? So early bird pricing is on now until next weekend. And then after that, regular registration will remain open for a short time. I believe it starts Thursday, March 5th. It's virtual. So hopefully that makes it feel a little more safe for some men. So I've never done a virtual before, so I'm hopeful. And then it's 6 to 7:30, so after dinner time and having to deal with all those responsibilities. It's for 6 weeks, and we're going to go through the gamut. So introduction, guidelines, what do you guys need in this group, those types of conversations. And then a lot of it, the first portion of each session will be information driven. So here's information to kind of wrap your head around. Here's why these things might be happening for you, those types of things. And then the last half or even longer than that is going to be like a guided discussion led by me to really encourage sharing. But you don't have to share. If you don't want to, you don't have to. It's just a space for those things to take place if that's what you're needing. Yeah. Show up for you. Totally. Right? Make it whatever it is for you. Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll link it below as well in the show notes. Every time, as you know, I have a guest, the last guest leaves a question for the next guest. Oh. So I have a question for you, and then you can leave a question for my next guest. Okay. You ready for it? I'm nervous. Okay. In what ways do you feel a sense of freedom in your life, and in what ways don't you? And what can you do to make it so you feel more freedom in your life? So I'll read it one more time for you. Yeah, that's a long one. In what ways do you feel a sense of freedom in your life, and in what ways do you not? And what do you need to do to make yourself feel more free in your life? I mean, I have to say, and maybe it's just the mood I'm in today, I feel pretty free. Like, I think I'm fortunate to live in the time that we're living in right now in terms of I can pretty much choose anything that I want to do, career-wise. I can raise my kids in the ways that make sense to me. There's more acceptance around how I raise my children and how I show up as a mother and how I show up as a partner. And I live in a country where I'm free to make the choices that I want to make. And I feel very free. To feel more free, I think I would like to see something shift from a government perspective. We won't dive into that, but that was the first thing that came to mind. I'm like, I don't know how much freedom is going to exist if we continue down a certain path. So that feels a little threatened at times, but for the most part, I feel pretty free. I love it. Yeah. I love that answer. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for being on the show again. It's so fun. We could have, I always think I know we could have talked for hours. We could have talked for hours and gone down so many different rabbit holes. Yeah. So I'm sure we'll do it again. Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Of course. Good luck with your podcast. It's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. And thanks to everybody for listening and watching. Yes. And we'll see you in the next episode.